There we go. Welcome to 21st Century Learning, exploring the intersection of education and technology. This is episode number 3.09, and you're listening to the EdTech Talk channel of the World Bridges Network. Today is March 12th, 2015. I'm Alex Ragone.
I'm Arvin Grover.
I'm Vinny Broughton.
Happy spring, or almost spring.
Yes, spring-like. Happy spring-like.
Spring break.
Oh, yes, happy spring break for those of us who have it.
Ah, spoiled.
Yes.
The sprint break. Now you both have. Do you each have 2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
The kids have 2 weeks, let's put it that way.
The kids have 2 weeks, but, having us just a slower pace is a very nice thing.
Oh, it's completely different. 9 o'clock, getting to work at 9 is like a radical trip.
Sleeping in to 7:30.
Yeah.
Have you ridden your bike yet, Arvin?
I started dusting it off yesterday. I'm getting ready. I'm gonna ride starting next week.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm doing the 5-borough bike tour in May, so I've been running, but I gotta get on my bike so my back doesn't hurt so much when I do it. That's 54 miles, so.
That's good.
So 2 weeks ago, you guys were both at NAIS.
Yeah.
How was that?
Go ahead, Arvin.
Well, except the fact that we didn't really see each other. We have to see each other virtually more than we do in person.
There's so many people at NAIS.
It was huge. I think it was the biggest year ever. Did he say 5,500 people? Did I hear that number right, Vinny?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it was enormous. Of course, they picked Boston in Boston's snowiest winter in many, many, many years. Record-setting snow everywhere, but huge mountains of snow. Vinny's coming from Chicago, thought it was not much, not bad at all.
Actually, it was pretty incredible. Just the amount of snows and seeing, mounds that that there are cars that you hope that they'll be able to find by now.
Yeah, that was kind of scary to see that people's cars had basically disappeared.
Or
oh man!
Going down a sidewalk and then having to backtrack because someone hadn't cleared out their walk.
Yes.
It was just crazy that way. So, but in terms of the conference and
wow.
I was just there on Thursday because I was at the Illinois State Conference on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so I jetted in on Wednesday and then flew back out on Thursday. And so, it was, I didn't get to see as many sessions, obviously, just because I was connecting with, in the new role, connecting with vendors on the vendor floor and making face-to-face contacts with our SIS, Veracross, and since they're up in that area, so got to meet some of the team up there. But I thought that the sessions that I went to, I picked well, because there was a morning session with Laura Deisley and Wendy Drexler and a third person that was a really, really good start to the day. And then I did the speed innovating, which is one of the more difficult experiences.
Did you present there, Vinny, or did you participate?
I presented there, and it was, I think, one of the more challenging ones that I've done because it was about 3D printing. And so because everybody's coming in a much different place in their journey, some people are looking for answers, some people are wanting to think about it for the first time. You've got 12 minutes to go through, so I essentially just had materials ready to go, and then try to determine what the tone at the table was for that particular 12 minutes, and went from there. So, but John Medea was interesting. He was good, and then their closing session with the three speakers were quite interesting. And again, there was Arvin was talking about some hits and misses. I think there were some hits and misses within that group. Suni Brown with the doodling was very interesting. They had the first lady whose name I can't remember. She was fascinating, but she tried to fit 25 minutes into 15-minute slot. So, all in all, it was a good conference.
Yeah, I was there for both days, so Thursday and Friday, and usually I pick a little better than I did. I hit some sessions that I just wasn't getting. They weren't pushing my own understanding very far, so that was a little bit frustrating. It was really interesting that the outgoing the outgoing chair of the board of NAIS said in his opening remarks, if you go to a session, do not get up and leave. Like be respectful to the presenters. Wow. And it was funny. There was a bunch of people on the Twitter back channel saying, I guess they don't know the rules of open space or an unconference would not apply here.
Right.
But it was a very, for me, that was a very like 1.0, 2.0 moment where it was like, kind of a call to things past. But time there is so precious, and there's so many people presenting what they do there. It can be hard to stay in a session where you're not really learning something. So that I just thought was an observation that surprised me to make there. Vinny's comment about that panel at the end. That panel was just completely wild. 3 different speakers. It wasn't a panel. It was 3 different speakers. The theme of the NAS's conference this year was designing the revolution in schools. So it was a lot of design thinking, a lot of thinking outside of the box, thinking differently about how we school. I made the observation that it was ironic that the conference was the exact same format it's always been, and so as long as I've known it, I would look for a little more conference innovation. I would have hoped for some more. But the speakers were really, the woman that Vinny was alluding to, I don't remember her name either. She is a research scientist, and she was talking about this project that was just completely talk about outside of the box thinking. She had designed these underwear that inside the underwear could be stored different types of bacteria that don't normally interact with each other in the outside environment. One was an E. coli, one was something else, and that they have these reactions inside. So the underwear is kind of like plastic casing almost. It's more like a suit. And you can see them as all different kinds of colors in there.
Where is this going?
I know, where is this going? There's a room of 3,000 people listening to this. We're trying to figure out where this is going. And so she eventually comes up with her team. Her team does a lot of design thinking around how to get these things working, a lot of problem solving, a lot of teamwork, a lot of biochemistry. And eventually they figured out they could get these bacteria, one of their byproducts of their reactions is sugar. And they wanted these underwear to secrete sugar cubes into the pockets of your pants. So while they're working, that's part of the output of these underwear. So there was a lot of puzzled faces in the room, myself included.
The research was absolutely fascinating from a science standpoint.
Oh yeah, the science was on. She was so far ahead of anyone what we could follow in the room. But it was hard to figure out what we were supposed to take from that. Exactly.
You gotta think in your underpants to get outside the box.
But I did really enjoy Sunny Brown, who's also a bit of a wild presenter in terms of very frazzled, very high-low kind of energy. She calls herself the Info Doodler, and I definitely ordered her book. I haven't got it yet, but. It's about visual literacy, and she talked about how she worked at a company where, whenever they would work with clients, they would draw things, they would illustrate things, and she thought it was very cartoony and almost amateur. She used to make fun of it and was embarrassed about it until she learned what can be conveyed through a visual medium versus text or analog or just speaking, and so she has this thing. If you just search the visual alphabet. She's got these little, it's like 12 symbols that you can teach kids or teach adults on how to communicate visually. So I'm really intrigued by that and want to follow up with that.
And then I know that Shelley Paul down in Atlanta, I think she did Mount Vernon, is really taken and really worked that with her students.
Oh, really?
Really, really cool stuff with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that I thought was a really powerful way to get to kids differently. And adults,
right.
Myself.
It's a lot of the context of NAIS is just connecting with folks. And so, it was really, really great to connect with Mary Cantwell down at Mount Vernon Presbyterian and see what she's up to and where they're taking their deep design thinking. And Chris Biggenhoe and the Makerspace, which it was very interesting. They developed a Makerspace on the floor, of the vendor floor, with a variety of different schools. And although I was with Grant Lickman walked through it and was pointing out the number of the schools that were talking about design thinking, and there are probably 6 definitions of design thinking, including one school that he has since posted that put a definition of design thinking that didn't even mention a design or empathy or work with students. It was really, really interesting. It is kind of where everybody is, and they're applying it in the way that they want to, as opposed to just using that as a lens.
It's really.
I thought that was. I noticed that at some of the sessions I attended, which was the one thing that seemed notably absent for me for a lot of the design presentations, where there was no iteration. They designed something once and just did it, and so there was no, trying to improve it by using the practice of iteration. And that I felt was like that was where all, for me personally, that's where all the money is in design thinking.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That was just my take on it.
It's really interesting. We've been running these working groups here with a design thinking methodology in terms of defining problems, doing research, and then wrapping back around, but also like allowing you to work as a division on different things. And so I'm using the methodology as a framework for that because we have problems to solve. It makes a lot of sense. And the place where it's hard to, where we're still figuring out is the loop back, is that iteration part. Like once we've done something, what does it look like in the fall after 6 weeks or 8 weeks and you've experimented with something? How do you keep growing and picking on new problems to solve and then coming back to the old ones that you've made changes with when there's so many moving parts? And that's one of the things I'm kind of, where's the place for this? Where's the place for that? How it's really complicated when you have so many moving parts in schools to keep coming back and making sure that you're being thoughtful there. It's challenging.
But all in all, I think it was a good conference. I mean, the whole week was good. I had a good week. So at the ICE conference in Illinois, I did a great 3-hour workshop with the person I worked with last year. We worked with making for a 6-hour period. It was awesome. Great feedback and great engagement by the teachers, really delving in, having the opportunity to explore, and then got to do a spotlight session, which was live streamed, which going back over the tape, too many verbal tics. But it was good, and it was a good. And then I got to try out something new. They asked me to do a TED-style talk, which I finally was able to really crystallize some ideas around something that I've been batting around for a very long time, which was if Frederick Froebel were to develop his 20 gifts today, what would they include? So just kind of an interesting way to think. So,
well, you're going to have to post the video then, Vinny.
I'll share it with you all.
All right.
Nice.
I'm not sure that I necessarily want to post it broad.
So my NAIS story is that on the Friday, I guess it was the Friday afternoon before NAIS, I'm walking through Penn Station, and it was like Friday night at like probably 5:15, and my train was late, so I was moving like to another part of the station because the door that I normally go down had like 1,000 people on it. So I just walk around to another door because it's just not. I just hate being in crowds like that. And so I'm walking with a colleague to the train, and somebody says, "Alex," and I look up, and it's Richard Cassissier standing there.
Oh,
nice.
Who was in transit to Boston. Staying with a friend in New York for the night, and he was like, "Alex, how are you?" Rah! So it was like the last person you expect to see.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like when that happens, I couldn't even believe it. I was like, you know, but so it was. That's my funny. So I sent him a tweet on the train and said, "Great to see you. You know, wish we could have spent some more time."
Yeah, I know.
But small world moments.
That is great. So are you enjoying Adam Grant and your give and take? Alex,
Me?
Yeah, you have give and take
Oh,
on
yeah.
Give and take. I don't know. I got to figure out what I'm going to read. I'm reading Arvin's suggestion of Work the System right now.
Oh, man. That's the book I love to hate and hate to love.
It's such an interesting read. His story is fascinating. Like, you know, I know what you mean about hating to love, loving to hate. But it's like it's important. I don't know. It's helped me become more comfortable with saying like how are we going to define this system and kind of. But I haven't started any of the like really mechanic pieces of it, like the. But I think I am going to go through some of those bigger picture
activities.
Things.
Yeah, I'm reading Make It Stick right now. Is kind of a research of how we remember, how we learn things. It's a summary of the research. It's really good. Really good. It's very analogous to the book How We Learn, which came out from the New York Times science writer, I don't know, 6 months ago or something.
Yep.
They're sharing a lot of the same materials. But Make It Stick it's about challenging the assumptions teachers have long held and parents and students have long held about what the best ways to learn things are, including how important in the book how important testing is to not only remembering things but also being able to creatively apply them to different situations later on. And so, you know,
that's helpful.
The critique of, you know, testing in general. Just what they talk about is mass learning, when like you just take one set of vocab, let's say, or one set of problems, you're trying to memorize how to do those exactly, and why that doesn't. It works really well for a test the next day, but works terribly when you try to test it a week later. So a lot of and talks about how bad rereading notes are, how ineffective that is as a study strategy, even though that's what most people do. Reread the notes and reread the text rather. Anyway, it's worth a read for sure.
that is?
Say it again, Vinny.
Who's the author of that?
It's a collection of authors.
Made to Stick, The Science of Successful Learning.
Make It Stick.
Make It Stick, yeah.
Yeah. Peter Brown, Lee Roediger, and Mark McDaniel.
Awesome. I just started Perkins' newer book, Future Wise, Educating Our Children for an Ever-Changing World.
Future what?
Future Wise. By David Perkins, who was up at the Project Zero at the head.
Oh, got it.
So, you know, first chapter started off with the premise that, you know, why do we need to learn this? And it's kind of built from there. So.
You're breaking up just a little bit, Vinny.
Yep.
So I just, you know, he asks the question, you know, stops at the question, why do we need to learn this? And just kind of starts to explore what it is that we do in school and how we build silos is where it looks like it's going to go, and what do we really do. So.
Love that.
Gotcha. Yeah. I have a hard stop, gentlemen.
All right.
So I'm going to take us out. So thanks, everyone, for listening to 21st Century Learning, Exploring the Intersection of Education and Technology for March 12th, 2015. Enjoy the next couple of weeks. We'll be back in 4. And if you have questions or comments, please find us on Twitter or Facebook or some other social media. Take care.
Cheers.